Understanding tax isn't easy. Understanding what to keep back from a tax perspective can be quite complicated.
Don't let the HMRC be a thorn in your side. You be a thorn in their side. You bring it to them. Messy doesn't help anymore. This idea that if my life is confusing enough, the HMRC go, no.
You're a construction worker that buys their own tools. You know, that's almost part of your business cost centre at that point, isn't it?
You've just taken one of the most complicated argument cases and then brought it in as an example. It's nice to be financially literate. You don't have to be financially literate. You just have to be ordered.
Yeah.
Don't take more out than you need to.
Yeah.
You don't spend money on stuff that you don't need to. Delay your gratification until you've hit that point. Your business is your baby that will grow and look after you in your old age. Don't do it harm. That was quite impassioned, wasn't it?
It was very impassionate, actually, yeah.
The single biggest piece of advice is actually to...
Welcome to Talking Wise, the podcast for logistics and self-employment and what it takes to scale without the wheels coming off. I'm Dan Richards, the host, and today we're talking to Gary Jacobs about private hire, self-employment, accountancy, and his other business, Gigzee. Gary, good to have you, my friend.
Nice to be here.
So, do you want to give us the Gary Jacobs story? I've heard it many times over the years, but I think the listeners would probably like to know a bit about you.
Well, yeah, with pleasure. As I always like to say, I'm an accountant by training, but everyone always says I don't sound like an accountant, and unfortunately I'm reaching an age where I look like an accountant. So I started my practice 30 years ago. Strange enough, I was originally an insurance broker. I trained to be.
Yeah, I remember you saying that before, actually.
Yeah, I thought to myself, what's the most boring thing I could do? Became an insurance broker and suddenly realised I'd missed the accountancy.
The buzz of accounting.
The buzz of accounting.
Woo!
And when I was qualifying, when I was doing my exams, my first, I drove a minicab, basically.
Okay.
So my first clients were ground transport. And also my background in insurance broking, I used to look after large private hire fleets. So when I came out of there, I just had lots of contacts there.
Okay.
So I really started doing tax returns from a shed at the bottom of my garden 30 years ago. And that grew into the company that is now Eazitax, which is a broad-based accountancy service. And along the way, I really spend most of my time nowadays doing consultancy work for large private hire and logistic entities. And I do a lot of conflict work as well. So I get involved with, any form of internal and external conflict. Yeah. And I'm also the CEO of Gigzee.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Which is another product, financial. It's a fintech that it's basically, and I'm sure we'll speak about it a little bit more, but everything with me seems to surround itself about. But it's funny, I always say the same thing. I used to be introduced as a minicab accountant, but it seems this day I'm now a mobility expert, which I think is if you stand in the same place for long enough, it's the terms that change. So
yeah, of course, yeah.
That's what I do. So that's me, really.
Yeah, good. And obviously, Eazitax, been around 30 years, but you do a lot more than just accountancy, right? And I think you've sort of touched on it there, but I know you've been heavily involved in status inquiries and self-employment in general, right?
Yes.
As a percentage, how much of your time do you think you spent doing that sort of work?
Gosh, I think this. Well, I tend to put that under the conflict banner.
Yeah, of course.
Status work. Well, at one stage, it was maybe 30-40% of my time. It's become, you don't have to go far in the trade press to see Uber's little thing, which kind of fed into a view from the HMRC. Yeah. I work with one or two other small consultancies that specialise in it. It takes up a significant part of my consultancy time, both after the axe has fallen and the conflict starts. But I do spend a lot of time cleaning up companies. Yeah. And you know what? Being a private hire operator, being a DSP, being anybody relating to ground transport, people have a very simple view of what they do. You're taking a parcel, you're taking a person from A to B. Actually running these companies is very complex, especially with private hire. it's a very highly regulated industry.
Yeah.
You've got to run your business well. You've got to have a very strong model. There's huge amounts of regulations. There's the welfare of the public to keep in mind. There's a lot of press eyes on it. And these things, I always say the same thing. You've got to keep, you've got national legislation, you've got local authority legislation, and you've got regulations within the industry. And somewhere along the lines, you've actually got to make a profit somewhere.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. No.
So yeah, we spend a lot of time modelling companies to, the truth is, it's often a compromise. So it's, putting the best model in place. And that's, and to be honest, I think from my perspective, a lot of people go to solicitors and a lot of people go to accountants who are, and I see myself in a kind of middle space.
Yeah.
I'm not a solicitor.
Yeah.
Solicitors will look at your contract obligations, but won't always understand the way your company runs.
Yeah, no, yeah, get that.
Accountants will look at your numbers, but they still won't look at the way your business runs. We're like the hole in the sofa that catches the coins. We sit in the middle of these things to actually look at how the business runs and the protections that you need that have a foot in both camps. So I work with both legal teams and tax teams to put in place these, we call it a status audit really, and it looks at how main contractors engage with their workers.
Yeah, no, for sure, yeah. And I know that what you've said resonates a lot with the DSPs that we deal with, and I think we fall into a similar sort of category actually, where we understand enough about the legalities and enough about the operation that we can offer sort of more tailored, not advice from our perspective, but more guidance, I guess. So that is good to hear. And then the other part, I guess, Gary, of your general being, I guess, is you're on about 100 panels, right? You're on a panel. You're on a panel for everything, aren't you?
I'm not hard to Google. So I think when you sometimes you've got to put your hat in the ring, and so I act for the big trade associations. I'm right to name them. The National Private Hire Taxi Association, the Licensed Private Hire Car Association. Without wanting to, I'm not trying to push my case here, but this industry's been very good to me, and you have to. I want it to continue. So sometimes you have to give of your time and energy. Yeah. I write for most of the trade magazines. I speak at most of the trade conferences. I engage with the, but mine is. I've experienced. I act for the unions as well. Yeah. I've experienced both sides. I'm a humanist by nature. So although we're in business to make money, I don't want anybody to suffer on my back. So I'm interested in good working environment for the drivers, and I'm interested. But I also think with these things, in order for drivers to have a good life, a company must be well run, and they are entitled to make a profit as well. So if you can create a win-win, I think the only bogeyman in all this is the behaviour of the government, and that depends on, they only have 4 years to get their act together.
Yeah, and it starts again.
Yeah, and it starts again, and we haven't always been well serviced.
No, you're right, yeah. And we're going to come on to this later, but you were on the panel for MTD as well, weren't you?
Eazitax actually has the we were the first people ever to submit a digital tax return. Yeah. That's 7 years ago now. It's
they've got on with it. That's clear. 7 years later.
Well, we always used to say MTD, it's coming.
Yeah, it's coming.
It's definitely coming. It's nearly here. Yeah. No, we were there early days working with the policymakers, and we are one of a software house that we used, which is Thomson Reuters. We were involved with them in the very early days. Now, obviously, MTD's powering through this year, but the concept of digitizing, I don't think people get really what MTD is, and we'll talk for a second about some of the simple answers. But the idea is that HMRC must be able to see your total journey from the day that you actually put your expenses in through to turning into a tax return, or as it will be eventually a set of accounts. The one coming up in April is just for people that do a tax return under 50,000. But
of course,
the rest of it will roll out. It's part of the long-term tax simplification program.
Is that what they call it? A tax simplification program?
I mean, that's the concept behind everything. I've never thought of HMRC and tax simplification as a.
They don't come together. To be honest with you,
they don't come together.
It's a bit like one of our customers. They use. So I won't name them, but they use the term cognitive load, and that basically means they're a little bit busy. And how do you make them less busy? But then they seem to, in one decision, make them less busy, and then the next decision make them busier than they were before. So that's like HMRC for me. You know, what they simplify, they complicate.
Well, remember, HMRC are just a government agency. So if the goalposts are moved every, however many years, a new government comes in, new ideas come in. But every company has the concept of simplified tax is a great one. We're not very good at seeing it through, and there's a big disconnect. Do you know what? I sit on a few HMRC committees, and I've got to say, most of the time, I don't think I'm being, unfair, disingenuous, but it's well-meaning people.
Yeah, of course,
I sit. We've got a committee that I work with the industry associations about the digital platform legislation, and basically what happened is the HMRC, the legislation was written in Europe and then dumped on our door, and HMRC were told to implement it. So it's a bit like, somebody gets measured up for a suit that you've got to wear. It's never going to go well, is it?
And I don't think me and you'd make a good suit swap, to be honest with you.
I can put two of you in my suits, I'm sure.
Okay, so just, I guess, drilling into one of the sort of key topics, which I think you are, probably I'm going to self-declare you an expert in it, which is self-employment in general. So obviously, in our industries, ground transport, self-employment is really key. Just, I guess, more of a general question, if you were describing self-employment, how would you actually describe it? What is self-employment in your mind?
In my mind, or when I'm sitting in front of an HMRC inspector, it's kind of a different. Okay,
Yes.
So in the UK, I think it's a really important thing to get over. I mean, this is often how I start when we speak to clients, which is you can't decide if you're self-employed, Mr. DSP operator or Mr. Driver or Mr. Driver. There is a set of guidelines and structures. I mean, there's a tool that the HMRC asks you to use called assessment. It's problematic, but let's not go there. But you can't wake up one morning and decide I am a thing. The idea is that both legislation, definition, and the courtroom decides. But in effect, it comes down to, there's the four pillars that we talk about, but it's control. It's control. So, and I always think the best example, the HMRC does say, if you have someone coming in to paint your room, right, if you just say to them, I want the room blue and go away again, and that person paints the room, don't tell them how to do it. Well then, and you don't tell them when and how, just give them a deadline. That's a self-employed person. If you come in and say, these are the brushes you're going to use, this is the wall you're going to start on, you start at 9, you end at 5, and this is how I want you to paint. Or you have to train them to do it. That's it
edges you closer to.
That's somebody we now have self-employed worker status and employed. This podcast is not the place to start going into the details of it. I even bored myself just now. But we look at things like, my favourite one is moo, because it just gives me the opportunity to say the word moo.
Mutual obligation.
Which is mutuality of obligation. And that, even the way that tribunals and courts work, there is a fashion. So at the moment, control is the big thing, but mutuality of obligation simply means you've got to come to work, you've got to be given work. That's what an employee does. The right to refuse work is what self-employed people do. If you look at, there's a big thing about the right to substitute. It's not great for our industry to look at it, but it is one of those things which is, if I ask you to come and mend my toilet, it doesn't matter whether it's Dan or Bill or Chloe or anybody that comes in to do the toilet. Once you're contracted with that person, anybody can mend your toilet.
I'd like to see Chloe mend the toilet, to be honest with you. I think that'd be a fiasco waiting to happen.
I genuinely believe she can do it.
No, I believe she could do it, but how many times would she get it wrong?
Nobody wants to put their hands down the toilet, really, do they?
No.
So the idea, it's funny actually, I don't know why I always end up with plumbing.
I think plumbers are like quintessential sort of self-employment, aren't they, a plumber?
Well, one of the biggest cases.
Yeah, Pimlico.
Yeah, Pimlico was actually, it didn't quite turn out that way. But this is the idea, is that a self-employed person, if you phone them, if you contract with them to do a job, anyone can turn up to it. That's the right to substitute. And listen, in private hire, there used to be this whole thing, well, if you're in a circuit and driver A, if Bob turns up and then Bob can't do it, well, the next person down the line can do it. And it was, but, it's so funny because with all of these things, control, supervision, direction and control, which is how it's seen, the financial risk and reward, which is basically if you are taking a financial risk. Good example in private hire, turn up to a job, person's not there. Yeah. Do you get paid or don't you? If you don't get paid, then you are definitely self-employed because you're sharing the risk. Once again, there's always exceptions to the rules.
Buying your own tools and equipment as well sort of falls into that financial risk category, doesn't it? So if you're a van driver that buys their own van, or you're a construction worker that buys their own tools, that's almost part of your business cost centre at that point, isn't it?
You've just taken one of the most complicated argument cases and then brought it in as an example. Yeah. Thanks, Dan.
Well, we don't need to go in the ins and outs of it.
We're going to do this.
Yeah, we're going to do it now. Sorry.
I'm going to make you suffer.
Yeah.
The legal precedent, and let's be clear, courts produce precedent, tribunals produce... simple word, tribunals produce a judgment that can be quoted elsewhere.
Yeah, so, case law, basically.
It's not
case law, but yeah.
So there isn't a great deal supporting that the purchase of your own equipment makes you self-employed. But I always call it the bricks in the wall of protection. So being VAT registered or buying your equipment is another strong argument in the case, because we're going back to the fact that it's subjective. It's not always straightforward. Self-employment can be questioned. Some of the things, there are some legal definitions, and of course, every time there's another tribunal or court case, those goalposts move a little bit. Yeah. But there are some things you can do to protect yourself and plant a machine. You buy your own plant and then buy your own tools, and VAT registration, stuff like that is a
good sign.
Is a good brick in the wall to protect yourself. And I have to be careful. I promise you, we'll talk, and some solicitor will go on the line and say,
yeah. Well, I think it's important, Gary. Actually, obviously, all this is opinion and guidance, right? It's not. Don't do exactly this. It's not what we're saying. But I think the reason I like the tools argument is because obviously, if you've got an employee, they come to work, they don't pay for their own laptops or their own equipment. It's provided as part of the role. And obviously, if you're self-employed, you don't get that. And that, for me, it feels like a very logical argument. Whether it's seen that way or not obviously depends on the day.
Logic doesn't always have a great place in my life when it comes to these sorts of things. I tell you, one of the things that is, a self-employed person should be already capable of doing the job.
Yes, yeah, no, it's a good point.
So having the right tools shows, and here's one for you main contractors, did I just keep saying a couple of times? I'm sorry about that. That's very Gary. If you are a main contractor, HMRC would not expect you to be training the people that you engage with if they're truly self-employed. I mean, once again, as you say, this is all opinion. All of these are removable fees in any given inquiry.
Of course, yeah.
You never quite know where it's going to come from. Yeah. But this is what I do. This is what we do with the status audits, is we give you a model that reflects all of the, I'm not pitching, by the way, I'm just trying to set a...
No, it's right, it's good.
All of the advice we give gives you a model that we know reflects the working practices, which then go on to create a contract on how the modern judgments, tribunals, views and inquiry work that we do has set a simple standard. It never hurts.
You use the bricks in the wall analogy. We always use, you remember our old friend Jeremy, we always use the seesaw analogy. So trying to put as many bags on the side of
Yep.
self-employment as you can. And as long as your scale is sort of leading towards self-employment, then you probably are.
Yep.
But you've always got the risk that, and I was chatting about this actually last week with someone about a separate topic around an inspector coming in and their view can be different to the next inspector's view. And that's always a risk, right?
So the one joy in life is every time you think you know what you're doing, someone else, and I'm in, I'm in this at the moment.
Yeah.
I have some inquiries that I'm dealing with at the moment, and every time you think, aha, well, there's the answer, and it's
not.
It's not.
Yeah, someone else views it slightly differently.
I mean, just out of interest, it's very rare for HMRC. I know someone's going to call me out on this, but it's very rare for HMRC to knock at your door and say, you are being inspected for status. It always starts with another journey. So we're coming to do a general inquiry. Yeah. Section 19. Well, you don't need to know the detail. It starts with a general inquiry. What do you do and how do you... And by the way, when the HMRC chooses to engage with you, I have a very simple, here's a bit of advice I can give this as advice.
Yeah.
Don't let the HMRC be a thorn in your side. You be a thorn in their side. So the worst thing you can ever do, and I'm talking as an accountant, as a consultant, as somebody that fights these battles, is you bring it to them. So I have people saying, oh, the HMRC somebody wants to speak to us.
Yeah.
And I've been ignoring the letters. And no, get well represented and answer the questions. Ignoring these things and trying to avoid them doesn't help you. Having a good structure in place and knowing what you're going to say. Yeah. I always say to clients as well, though, the same advice I give to my clients as my teachers gave to me when I did my O-levels 322 years ago, which is, only answer the question that you're asked. Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah, we see that. I mean, we always say to clients, if you get a letter from HMRC, you get an inquiry, send it to us first. We're not going to give you... You're always free to go and get your own advice, right? But the amount of times that they won't do that, they'll go, I've just replied. Oh. Yeah, and then they reply and there's loads of stuff on there. You didn't say half of that. But I think people get themselves into a panic, right?
Well, they either ignore it, and then, there's a few basics. Yes, absolutely, you have to be well represented. And if your accountant has the insurance, it's well worth doing. But the simple fact is, if you have your model in place first, then you don't go down there. But I was going to say before, every inquiry normally starts with a general inquiry, or it could be a VAT inquiry, or it could be very often it's a VAT inquiry leads to a payroll inquiry, leads to a status inquiry.
Okay.
So you can't, they're not going to knock on your door and say, how do you engage with the drivers? They might do in the near future, but generally it's inspectors will have some point within your makeup as a company when they learn about you that will give them a little flashing light.
Got you.
I love that I did the flashing light thing and we're on a podcast where no one can see us apart from they choose to look on the camera.
They choose to look on the camera, yeah. Flashing light, yeah. Get the hand gesture. The flashing light.
The little flashing light that says, you're engaging with self-employed workers. I'm going to refer this to our status people. But once again, it's the same thing as well they don't smash down your door. Unless you've been super naughty. Yeah. But they're different people. But they don't smash down your door. And there's no obligation to meet with them. I think that's always the one that I'm surprised about. I often have meetings with HMRC because obviously we know what we're doing, but there's no obligation. Accountants, a lot of accountants are competent, but by nature not good. They're not. It's not an episode of Suits. They're not experts on representing people's interests.
So, not the best closure in New York, like Harvey Specter.
Exactly. So they're not necessarily going to be good, but they're great at answering a letter. And I think it is about knowing your rights. There is a tax charter. The HMRC are obligated to maintain that. So you just need to know what you're doing. But a status audit never comes. Status inspection, never comes through as a status inspection. It always comes.
That is really interesting. So basically, it's almost a bit of guidance or advice as you've sort of badged it there. Is I guess if you do get any sort of HMRC inquiry, to make sure that you've got your answers and you answer only that particular topic they're talking about, and you don't open the door up to extra inquiries. Even if you're doing everything right, you just don't want the admin right of answering all the questions for multiple inquiries.
I think I see this all the time. I say to a client, please only answer the questions. There's nothing wrong with please only answer the questions that are being asked. And by the way, the HMRC don't mind that, because they'll answer the question for a reason. What they don't want is to say, how many somethings have you got? And instead of going 5, you go, 8 years ago, we decided to, my wife and I were in Mallorca and we decided to buy a hat. And you think, it's amazing that you go on a journey with them and you look at people, and it isn't about saying something wrong as well. I mean, sometimes it is about saying something stupid, which the number of times I've seen clients, even very intelligent people, answering the wrong question in the wrong way because it was in their head.
Yeah, of course.
But it's also about I think the old style of accountants sometimes used to say, like, give the HMRC chaos.
Yeah.
And actually, I think it's a naive thing to do, because we're living in a world of data, data-driven.
Well, HMRC are investing a lot in automation, aren't they?
So actually, transparency is your protection nowadays.
Yeah.
Knowing why you're doing something, the reasons behind it, being able to defend it. If you give them chaos, they can unpick it with their digital behaviour quite easily.
Yeah,
and I think that's, it's no good just lots of bank accounts and lots of trading, lots of this and that. Confusion doesn't help nowadays. It actually hinders.
Okay, that is interesting. And then just on status inquiry, let's go into a status inquiry specifically. So you do get to the point where you're having a status inquiry. What are the HMRC looking for or looking at? What's the first things they'll come in? So I'm sitting down today, Gary, I'm doing an inquiry on you and your company from a status perspective. What are they looking at?
Well, they're looking at control mechanisms. And that's quite subjective. And this is why it's always exciting being on the other end, because sometimes you can't presume what they're going to look at. But it always starts with them asking you about your business and getting an understanding of how you trade. And very often they can even get the wrong end of the stick as well. So I'm not saying that. It's interesting, really, because I'm not saying to be careful or not be careful, but you're better off just to explain. A lot of advisors don't understand some of the nuances of principal and agent.
Yeah.
And principal and agent is not a simply defined thing, because you have VAT principal. You have principal, agent and principal from a tax perspective, agent and principal from a legal perspective. I mean, this is all this confusion in the private hire industry about with the VAT in London. That's
of course.
It's a judgment that was picked up as a tax judgment that was never meant to be that. We don't have time for that now. That needs a whole podcast on its own. But it's important to define some of the terms, but they will always start off by asking you about what your business does.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hurt to be able to give a concise, and also the one thing is, no company ever works, if it does the same thing, if its job is to take a parcel or a person from A to B, the way they do it, the methodology behind it, how they engage with their workforce is very different. So that's the important thing, is they won't come in, they're looking for those the 4 pillars. They're looking for the control elements, where the people are being supervised, directed, control. But that's a very broad definition. Mutuality of obligation is another thing, and it's always the thing that you're not expecting. Private hire companies use dispatch software. Dispatch software, if you refused a job, the dispatch software used to go penalty, put you in a sin box.
That's obviously straight away against mutuality obligation, right?
Yeah, because the right, it comes down to the right to refuse work. It took me ages, and I'm not saying not all of them guilty, some of them are great, but it took me ages explaining to them just to change the term from penalty, which some people were using it. If a driver refused a job, there was just an admin break. I mean, technology's catching up with itself, but there was an admin break. So just note it as that, to allow that job to be moved to someone else. Then it's not a penalty for the driver. It was just allowing them to fit back in that queue to get it. Yeah.
So we see it all the time. I mean, and it is tricky for the operators, the DSPs, when they are trying to plan their workforce almost and know who's going to be available and what. But, you know, one of the real grey areas for us is like scheduling drivers and getting them to commit to working in advance.
Yeah.
And then how soon or how close to the job can they say they're not available? And really the true answer is they could do it, you know, 5 minutes before they're due to start. But operationally, that obviously is really difficult to
And
manage.
also, but the other thing you've got to remember is when you're sitting in a courtroom, if somebody is self-employed, but the client wants them to work to a certain thing, anybody can sign up to do anything for client. If the DSP or, actually no, let's talk about private hire operators really, because it's a broader term. If an operator has a client that needs a particular thing done at a particular time, like school runs or whatever it is, well then that's what the contract is.
Of course.
So they're not controlling the client. They're not controlling the driver. They're merely introducing a client that has a fixed expectation.
Yeah.
So it's just important to dig down into these things and understand. HMRC are looking for, you know, the substitution and control mechanisms. Is the driver behaving like a self-employed? Are they under that form of control?
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing. But as I say, the questioning when you first start an inquiry is really about, tell us about your business.
Yeah.
And it's quite important to actually have a concise idea of
Good answer.
what it does. But also, and to be fair, the HMRC can pick up on something, or tell us more about that.
You don't know what they're going to say, do you?
You don't know what they're going to say or what's behind it, and you could have a nice person or a nasty person, because we're all human. So the point I'm making is to be prepared. You cannot carpet that journey. You can't make it a wonderful experience, but you just have to be very clear in your defence as to why. And there's, you know, courts aren't kind to us at the moment. Nothing. Obviously, they're looking at your working practices match your contract. That's the modern parlance. It's massive. I always used to say, like 15 years ago, if your contract says at the time that we interacted, you had to wear a big blue hat. Got to go and buy yourself a hat, mate. That's the answer. Whereas now the courts will say, as happened in the Uber case, that the contract is not fit for purpose, and if the contract, the courts will not rely on the contract to the same extent. They'll look at what your working practice are. So guess what? It's important you better be able to present your working practices or know what they are in terms of the court.
Yeah, I'm smiling because, you know, it's verbatim what we say. You know, we say to customers, of course, having a contract's really important because that will be one of the first things that does get looked at. But if it doesn't match your working practices, then you might as well not bother. So having those two things, I think what sometimes we see is people go, well, just put it in the contract. And we go, well, does that happen? No. Well, don't just put it in the contract then, because it will just get unravelled really quickly. So what we try and say to people is get your contract to match your working practices as best you can. And then you've got a better position to work from.
I spend a huge amount of time working with solicitors, and it's not their fault. But, you know, I'm a translator. I do a lot of sort of project management of legal teams, I suppose, and very often I'm there to translate what actually happens to a legal terminology that everybody can understand.
I love legal lingo. So I love legal limbo as well. Actually, it's great. Though.
Exactly. It's just the suit gets in the way. But don't get legal term. Like, listen, we have an unwritten constitution in this country. The things change all the time, and this is what I always say to people as well. You know, we create legislation, but the legislation in this country is often defined by conflict in a courtroom, which then sets what the definition is. And so it just means that, nothing's straightforward.
It's like you mentioned the Plimlico plumbers case. I mean, when did that happen? Was it in the 80s?
Oh, please, I'm terrible on timing.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But that's been bypassed. There's cases out there all the time, and listen, we're talking a little bit about private hire. You know, all the big ride hailers have been put through the ringer. Do you know? I know it gives some people pleasure to see the big guys being taken into a courtroom, but it doesn't do us.
Doesn't do anyone any good
unless there's some clear definition. Because I'm worried about. You know, here's a great example: the piece of VAT, the Sefton case, which was a follow-on from Uber case about VAT. The court case has come to the conclusion where it says They recognise VAT in London within the TfL, Transport for London, and they don't recognise it outside.
Yeah.
That's basically came out of the last budget. Doesn't make any sense because you're not supposed to have two-tier taxation. You're not the HMRC, the government is not supposed to create competitive disadvantage. And the other thing is that the government during the budget went, oh, we're making it fair for the black cab drivers as well by bringing the ride hailers to VAT. So we're going to make VAT for everyone. There's 1,300 smaller private hire entities in London, mini cab firms that are traditional agents that could potentially be wiped out by having to put VAT on fares when they are genuinely agents. The whole thing, I mean, I'm sorry, some people listening to this might know what's happening, but I'm just saying that nothing makes any sense anymore. And we're constantly fighting. People just want to earn a living.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it, really? It's a shame. Like you said, people get, I think, a bit of sick pleasure when they see, in our world, it's the Amazons and stuff of the world that, people sort of like to feel the pain. But often their pain ends up being everyone else's pain.
It's exactly the same thing. And it's the small, I'm fighting on quite a few fronts for a lot of smaller operators that have got drivers that have been driving them for years. They're good to their drivers are good to them, and all of a sudden they've been basically the backsplash from all this big media filling stuff is not good.
No, it's not good. No,
it's a bad taste.
So just quickly back to inquiries, and then we will move on. So we like this podcast to have real practical tips on it. So regardless of where you are at the moment, HMRC might not be in your life at all, which is a great thing, apart from obviously paying your taxes. If you were giving someone one sort of piece of practical advice as to what should they be doing in almost preparation for ever getting an inquiry, what would that be? Would it be make sure you've got a good contract in place, make sure you know your business and you've got a story ready if you do get an inquiry? What would your biggest piece of advice be?
The single biggest piece of advice is actually to understand your model. Because you can have obviously have a contract, but as you said, if your contract doesn't reflect, you need to understand how your business works. And unfortunately, sometimes you need a bit of help doing that. But have the conversation with your accountant before the letter comes in from the HMRC. Understand, we're going to talk about MTD in a little bit. MTD will help you understand the money coming in, the money going out, where VAT sits, where your relationship with the driver sits. Don't ignore it and hope it's going to be fine, or don't write a contract, as you say, without it reflecting the business. Take the time to understand your model and you will be okay. You've got to do the groundwork. It's just as important as anything else.
Yeah, no, that is really great advice now, and I agree. And I think very similar to what we say to our customers, being prepared is better than being unprepared, of course. So it makes perfect sense. And we've sort of segued really nicely there, Gary. So you mentioned making tax digital there, which again is another hot topic. And as we mentioned, you were on the panel for it, and Eazitax did the first MTD return. Yes. So just very simply, as few sentences as we can, because it's not the most enthralling of topics, but what is MTD?
All right, making tax digital is digitising the tax system. Let's say what it's really about is so that HMRC can drill down and see your activities all the way through. And it means, so I don't think I would hope that most DSPs, most operators, if you are not digitised now, you do deserve a slap on the wrist, because you need to make it your account, make it a journey with your accountant. You should be using software to do what you need to do. And guess what? Don't skimp. You pay the money for decent bookkeeper. I'm not pushing me, but pay the money for decent bookkeeper, because it's more important than a lot of things now. It's always fairly low down in people's needs. It's now going to be fairly high up. For drivers and subcontractors, you cannot just walk into your accountant with a bag of receipts. You're going to have to become involved in the digital journey. And you know what? First things first. And I always promoted, I would say, my business, you're a sole trader, if you want to use your own personal bank account, it's up to you. It's not a great fit, but I'm not going to force you. I'm now saying to people, you need to have a separate bank account for running your business.
Yeah.
And by the way, there is no, I don't know if I'm being controversial here. There is no obligation to actually have a business bank account. You can actually, as a sole trader, you can choose to have a personal account.
I just set up a new personal account, but keep it separate.
Because I'm not here to put money in the bank's pocket.
Yeah.
Although I seem to do that a lot. Have a separate bank account.
Yeah.
Because you need, and I'm going back to what I said before about transparency. Your bank account, you can attach a very simple piece of software, speak to your accountant, things like Xero or Sage or Eazitax is up. No. Other software and data capture software does apply, but a simplistic way of scraping your data. You don't need to know anything about technology. You've just got to accept that you've now got to do one tax return in 4 parts a year. So it means that you can't wait till once. Your accountant is going to do quarterly returns for you. Which means the HMRC. Now there is a way for the HMRC, for an accountant to do at the moment to do an estimated return.
And then they do a correction basically at the end.
Come on, guys,
get you right from the start.
We're all big boys. It's time to put your big boy pants on and basically a piece of software to scrape your bank account, keep your receipts, photograph them. From our journey, we don't even, we use software for a lot of clients, but we've actually got our own software. You photograph it in WhatsApp and then just it uploads into it. Everybody has these systems.
I mean, our app for the drivers, from the Beanie perspective, all their income goes in, they can photograph their, but the one thing that we don't say, which I think is really good advice, is, they should set up a business bank account. So I'd imagine most of our drivers
separate bank account.
Separate. It doesn't have to be business, sorry. But a separate bank account, because I know for pretty much a fact that most of them would be just using their personal account, and then it gets messy, doesn't it?
Well, and if we go back to what I said earlier, messy doesn't help anymore. This idea that if my life is confusing enough, the HMRC can't, no. It's now transparency is your protection, because it needs to be, because they're not going to go after simple. They're going to go after complicated.
You're right. Well, complicated is where the tax is normally not being paid, right?
Exactly. So MTD basically means there's going to be quarterly returns. You need to make sure that you're photographing your receipts, so you have a simple way to capture that information, a simple way to capture it. And every accountant is getting ready for MTD. It's coming in April with the simple tax returns under 50,000, but it's going to roll out year by year. So you might
30,000, 20,000. Right,
you might as well get it right now. You don't need to be a computer expert. You just need to plug into the systems. Every accountant uses slightly different software. There's different ways of doing it. Beaming does it really well. It's simple stuff. Just do it though, and don't talk about it.
Of course. No, it's a good point. And then I think the obviously they've moved the date a few times, but I think it's pretty certain now that it is going to start properly this year. And then obviously
a few times. I mean, they just weren't ready, to be honest. I mean, I'm sure they won't even mind me saying that. They were. It was kind of wonderful and optimistic of them thinking that they're going to do it, but it just didn't work out that way. It's here now. I mean, it's coming. It's not going to change.
No. I don't think it will this time.
Well, the technology's here to handle it.
Yeah, it's true. I think the rest of the industry's sort of caught up now, haven't they? And how long, Gary, this is a complete opinion now, but obviously moving to quarterly estimates, how long do you think it will be before people are paying the tax quarterly? Feels like they'll go in that direction. But obviously this is complete opinion at this point. But
2 years.
You reckon 2 years?
Yeah, I don't think there's any messing around.
I don't see why they wouldn't do it on a quarterly basis.
Do you know what? If I was a...
I'm with you, I know what you're going to say. I'd pay it quarterly as well.
I was going to say, I was a driver. When I was first training, I was out. I know what it's like. Fighting a drunk on a Saturday night. Obviously only in self-defense. I'd do it because people think because you're, they say cobbler's children never have shoes, right? There's a By the way, that's not a true statement, and I wish well to cobblers everywhere. But and in this podcast,
That is not a sentence I expected to hear today.
Well,
I wish cobblers everywhere. What did you say? Goodwill to cobblers.
yeah, goodwill to all cobblers. And let's face it, there's been quite a lot of cobblers in this podcast. But I run a business.
Yeah.
And the last person to remember, we do all our clients' work and then we rush around trying to get our own work done. I will take on any payment structure that will help. If I was a driver now, I would want to pay quarterly. It's no, you can't.
You're right. Well, we see it all the time. I mean, look, bless the drivers. We've made a big part of our business is obviously supporting the drivers, but understanding tax, isn't easy, and understanding, what to keep back from a tax perspective, unless you're really hot on your numbers, it can be quite complicated. And that's where, as you said, software and stuff makes a difference. But I'd sooner have the money. I mean, I was self-employed for a number of years, and we used to put the money into a separate account within our bank account. And then we knew that tax was due to be paid. We never used it. We just kept it to the side and paid it.
I do my consultancy work. I might be oversharing here, but, I have a business, but I also do consultancy work through a little separate company because some of it's not practical for Eazitax. I charge that. And I put it in a separate account. Boring, I know. It's not my money.
Yeah, of course, yeah, it's not your money.
I'm not judging anybody, but it's not my money. I put it in a separate account and I pay the VAT, and then I don't think about it. And I also put some money away for tax. And sometimes if I'm a bad boy actually and overspend on my expenses, sometimes I get a bit of money back at the end. It means that, having these habits can't hurt.
No, and I think that's a good point. I mean, and we're not. I'm far away from an accountant, but whenever I'm talking,
I'm only over here.
Yeah, sure, you are close. Yeah. But whenever I'm talking to a new prospective customer, and we get into the conversation around VAT, when I hear the words using VAT for cash flow, it just sends all the alarm bells start going. I'm like, this business isn't sustainable if they're having to use that for cash flow. I get it can happen maybe once in a blue moon, but if you're regularly using that for cash flow, then...
Was that your segue into Gigzee?
Yeah, it's a good segue into Gigzee.
That was a fantastic segue into Gigzee. Thanks very much. I don't know if you meant to do that.
No, I didn't actually. We're going to come back to Gigzee. I just want to ask you two more questions.
Let me just finish on that. Let me just expand on that a little bit. Nobody wants to hear it, but that is not your money. If you can just build it into your brain that it's not your profit of your business and it's not yours. That's not me being Mr. Hoo-ha, I'm on the HMRC side. That's me saying just be real about your business.
Yeah.
And that's where true profit lies, in going, it's not mine, it wasn't mine. It comes back to the same thing, we started off by saying that I don't sound like an accountant. I probably have today. But one of the things that I often do with my clients is saying, look, nice to meet you. I know we're going to talk about the numbers, but let's talk about a business, some of the good behaviour. And exactly relating to that, don't take more out than you need to.
Yeah.
You don't spend money on stuff that you don't need to. Delay your gratification until you've hit that point. You don't deserve. I know you're having a bad day and you think you need a watch, but you don't always need that. It comes down to a mindset. Your business is your baby that will grow and look after you in your old age. Don't do it harm. That was quite impassioned, wasn't it?
It's very impassionate, actually, yeah.
But it's not,
your business is your baby. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because the first thing you learn when you start to grow is don't treat your business like your baby, because you've got to make hard decisions. But when you start the business, if you look after it, I know it's a cliche, but just do some good practice and it will look after you.
Yeah, of course,
and I'm really keen when I work with clients, you've got to look at the bigger picture. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to step off I've got a little soapbox here. I'm stepping off it now.
Well, I was about to ask you, and I think you've already sort of answered it really, because I was going to say, what does, you know what I'm going to ask, don't you? That's the truth. But what does good look like and what does bad look like? But I think you've sort of answered good, really, in your sort of soapbox sort of episode.
This is what good looks like. I don't care how painful it is. Transparency and understanding of what you're doing and how you're doing is everything. Yeah. Do not fool yourself. Good looks like And it's really hard. If your job is to sell cabbages, you want to be selling cabbages. Taking the time to do the bookwork or engaging somebody else to do your bookwork. Financial, you don't. It's nice to be financially literate. You don't have to be financially literate. You just have to be ordered.
Yeah.
People put bookwork, digital bookwork low on their list. The most important thing is to know what you're doing, know how you're doing it, to be able to plan and understand where you are. So good looks like using software, engaging with your accountant. And by the way, if your accountant doesn't hold your hand, get a new one.
Yeah.
Right? Your accountant is not there. And by the way, I'm just as guilty before clients write in. I have clients who don't want to see me and want to see me once a year, throw something at me and go away. Well, that's kind of up to them, and I will still love them as much as I can do. But every accountant loves people that want to work with them. If your accountant doesn't have the attitude of overseeing, and by the way, you also have to pay for the privilege.
Yeah, of course.
That comes into it. But good is about transparency, simple practice, recognizing the money coming in that you can take and have fun with, and the money coming in that's not yours.
Yeah, it's interesting actually, because we offer to some of our clients, depending on criteria, T's and C's apply and all that, we offer a free 6 months with an accountancy provider. But whenever I'm talking to a new client, which isn't as frequent nowadays, we've got a brilliant sales team, but I'll say, look, use the free accountancy service, get it all set up, get your bookkeeping set up. They'll set you up on Xero and all that sort of stuff. Great. But then my sort of personal advice, and it is just personal opinion almost, is get a local accountant, get someone you can go in, have a cup of tea with, and actually sit down with once a month, once a quarter, because that's where you'll get into the weeds of your business and actually understand the ins and outs.
I've sat in front of potential clients that will come to the practice and gone, you really don't want me. You're at a stage. I actually went to see someone a while ago, and I thought maybe I'm letting, once again, I think I'm oversharing. I thought...
Lots of oversharing. Yeah.
Bless. I thought they were kind of very powerful going somewhere. I think they made, they ran their trade well. Yeah. But it was basically just like a load of uncles in a room going, this is what we're doing and everything else. And I looked at them and they said, we've come to you as our saviour. And I sort of turned around to them and went, I'm not your guy. You need somebody to sit it. First of all, I am the guy to tell people to just behave themselves, because I'm not shy about that. And I think sometimes accountants, I like to be honest with the clients, even though they hate me for it. I mean, not all of them, but some. But the truth hurts. A good friend is the one that tells you the unvarnished truth, not what you think you want to hear. Yeah. And I've sat in front of a client and gone, you need somebody to sit on your lap and just take you on the journey, because you're not going to get there. Even having Teams meeting with me even if it's every month, or every, although no one can afford a Teams meeting with me every month. No, get the general idea. Yeah. But even if you're doing that, you actually need somebody that's going to, do you know what? If you're big enough, take on an internal financial person. Yeah. You're just not going to do it any other way. No,
I mean, when we started, it was all external. Obviously, Gary, you were involved at the start.
I was your accountant, mate.
That's your accountant. Yeah. We moved to another accountant. No names to be mentioned. But we've got like 5 or 6 people now in our finance team, because the business warrants having people that are looking at certain sections of the business every single day.
I don't think, once again, we're not talking out of school. When we first got together, you were a startup, and I set you up and put you in the right direction and went, well, I'm not going to sit on your lap anymore, and you need somebody that's got more resources than I have. Yeah. And off you went. It was a there wasn't any...
And now we spend a lot of time on finance people, and I get chased on a daily basis for receipts and approvals, and have to reply to, there's a TikTok trend going around about, I didn't realise that being senior in a corporate meant you just send loads of emails we've just approved on. But I do send a lot of emails just with the word approved on. So yeah, it's good fun, really good fun. I've got my cue cards. There you go.
You don't need it, you're not.
No, I don't need it. I know exactly what I'm doing. All right, Gary. So that's brilliant. I know accountancy obviously He's, geez, I was going to say it's important.
Absolutely not really important.
He's important, but important to every business, right? Whether big or small, getting your books in order.
Do you know, the numbers are important. They're horrible, but they're important. The model, going back to, I won't repeat myself now, but it's the model, and that's part. And if you can't do it, get someone in that can, but don't. You've got to put your hand in your pocket for it.
Yeah, true. Yeah, no, it's a good point. Okay, so last little bit. We're on to Chloe's name this, the cheeky plug section. So this is the cheeky plug bit of the podcast.
Okay,
Gary.
Should she take the cheeky plug out of her hand?
Yeah, it's not physical cheeky plug. Yeah,
okay. I didn't understand that.
Take it out of the hand. So obviously Gigzee, Gary, of which you are the chief executive
CEO. Yes.
So just quickly, for those listening, we are going to do a follow-up podcast to sort of deep dive into Gigzee. But do you want to give us the elevator pitch for Gigzee? What is it? Why do drivers like it, and why do operators and DSPs like it? Obviously, we've been trialling it now for a long time. I know, frustratingly so. But
no, I think we're part of the trial. No, I enjoyed the process.
Yeah.
So, simple thing. Gigzee just made sense to me. I'm obviously involved in every part of this industry, mobility and logistics. We realised that there was a problematic area, and for me, it actually came up because of main contractors' cash flow. But there's lots of reasons around this. Gigzee gives drivers the ability to draw down money they've already earned early for a fixed fee.
Great.
Did you see? I had to think that one through because there was so much relating to it. And I remember it started with a conversation with one of my operators who was actually lending the drivers money because he wanted to maintain the drivers. Any private hire drivers out there, January, it's not a great month, is it? Not for anybody. And it was they'd had a few struggling weeks. Money had been, it was basically, I always say this, the week was longer than the money.
Yeah.
And they're lending or reducing rent, or they were doing all this for like 3 days. And we realised that there was a facility, especially not mentioning any large ride hailers, but some of people on certain apps had immediate access to money for a price.
Yeah.
So what Gigzee does for an operator, your drivers, for DSP, your drivers can access the money within 2 hours once they're verified, and on the system.
Yeah.
And that is funded by Gigzee.
Yeah.
And they pay a fixed fee.
Yeah.
And it's very important to say that, because what we don't want to do, this is not like there's no interest involved. It's a single fixed fee.
Yeah.
And for that fixed fee, the driver receives his money, and then Gigzee then receives the money back during the normal payment. And it's one of those products that if you're not in this game, you wouldn't get it.
No.
But drivers, that's as complicated as it gets. It's absolutely transparent.
Yeah.
And it's a funded product that we've put together with a what we call a closed funding source. So it's us doing it. And it means that people can get their money when they want to. Yeah.
It's been really popular with the DSPs that we've trialled it with at a driver level, for sure. Yeah, really popular.
So we're rolling it out to private hire now. Obviously, I'm quite well known in private hire. So I mean, there is a story to this, because I was involved with the early stages of putting it together, but I was only an external consultant.
Yeah.
And I had a phone call from the backers one day. So really good news, we've got a new CEO. I mean, that's great. Who is it? I mean, well, it's you. But I think it's because no one else really had the passion. Because I get it. I get it, because I have lots of drivers that I look after for finances. I have lots of operators, and we look after all sorts of people. And I got it, and it just is what it is. And the take-up's been fantastic. Yeah. We actually did. We didn't roll it out too quickly. Yeah. The technology was put together. We're now running with Wise really well.
Yeah, no, it works nicely.
Yeah, and it just is what it is, really.
It just works. Is the thing. You know, it does what it says on the tin.
Does what it says on the tin. So we're rolling it out with some pretty big private hire operators as well. Am I allowed to mention names?
Yeah.
Okay, so one of our early adopters was Take Me, which is a massive Midlands-based private hire entity.
Go on, Midlands.
Yeah, good. And I was, do you know what? I was so nearly going to go into an accent then, and suddenly realised that I'm old. So we used to be able to do accents without getting into trouble, and now I'm living.
I'd love to hear your Midlands accent.
My bloody accent.
Yeah. It's all right. It's not too bad. Yeah. I don't sound like that, do I?
I was about to do my Peaky Blinders thing, but you can't say it without the swear word in the middle, so I'm not even going to go there.
Yeah, don't go there, no. PG.
Yeah, PG. We're rolling it out with some fairly major people in private hire, and it's very interesting because it's like any product. If somebody hasn't heard about it hasn't existed, they're going, well, what's the catch?
Yeah.
And there isn't. It just needed to be there. Somebody needed to do it. We did it. It's rolling out. It's great, and we look forward to working with it. And from a personal point of view, I've always had involved in other people's businesses as an accountant. I've had my own business. I've had other businesses because I have a tiny attention span, and I love this industry, and I get very excited, and people come to me with a project. Before I know it, I'm kind of more involved than I meant to be, which is
I know
fun.
that.
But I'm not on, let's be absolutely honest, with Eazitax. My team are wonderful. We've just merged with another company. We're having a great time with it, but I'm not on the tools anymore. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
There's a 6 in front of my age. I'm not a spring chicken. So, but getting involved.
You look good for it.
I love you. Getting involved with a rollout like this. I mean, it's we always say that directors say it's a startup, but it's not really a startup because we knew what we're doing.
Yeah, of course. It's a scale up, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a scale up.
Yeah.
But I've really enjoyed, and I would say that the COO I'm working with, who's also with Wise for some time.
Yes, our dear friend Jason. Yeah,
and you'll meet him. Also happens to be my son-in-law as well.
It helps.
Helps. Well, do you know? It's. I have other family coming into this, not from nepotism, but my family are quite well financially educated, as you imagine. Those that are, and the rest of them all work in the National Health Service. For the strangest thing, but
there you go.
So I've really just enjoyed it, and I'm really nice to have a product. I'm out there doing. I mean, I'll see you guys at every exhibition, everything. But it's quite exciting just to be involved with something, and it just fits in with everything else I do. So.
You're exactly like me. I mean, we've launched a partnership with and I will say their name, with a big van sort of leasing and sales company called Vanaways. And before you know it, I know everything about vans, and I'm a part-time van salesman. I just sort of get caught up in the excitement of it, and I never expected to love this industry either, but I do find myself now sort of deeply ingrained in it. It's quite infectious, actually. You know,
it pulls you in and you can't get. I mean, let's face it. We mentioned every time I talk to you, it pulls me back in. With Wise, as we said, I've had an association with Wise before. We've always been good friends, and I find myself, it's not a secret. I'm back engaged with Wise as well, both as a supplier and we're doing some other projects, which is, considering it's public domain and on the internet, the fact that Beaming and Eazitax partners on. Are we talking about that, or are we not talking about that?
No, I wasn't going to talk about that today, but I mean, we are partnering obviously on the private hire side, and
we've got some other. But I mean, once again, everything I do is relating to the benefit of the industry and the financials industry as a whole. But it's nice to be back working with you guys. I mean, we never really left each other.
No, not really. No, we always played with each other, didn't we?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's all good fun.
Yeah, you're like the Gary Boomerang, basically, and just throw, and then eventually you're back again. Yeah.
Do you know? I must say one thing about you reaching a certain age. I've always thought this thing, that reputation is really important. We're only human. We all make mistakes. I was about to say something else. We all make mistakes. We can all get it wrong. But if your heart is in the right place and you're doing your best, you find that every, let's 5-year cycle, things land back.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
If you haven't put bad karma negativity out there, then good things keep coming around.
I completely agree with that. Yeah, I never fall out with anyone if I can help it, because you never know when you're gonna need each other again.
I've fallen out with people, but it's an honest fallout. I mean, I say the same thing as well. I'm only human. If you make a mistake, own up to it.
Yeah.
I had an argument with somebody the other day, actually, and I think just do your best, but you'll get, if you're not real, you will get found out. You just can't be around for as long as I have been without getting found out. I mean, this isn't a segue into the what's in the media at the moment about what's coming out, but you've got to be genuine and real, otherwise you do find out, because you can't put a false face onto everything all the time.
No, you can't. You're right.
It's
stay true to who you are. I've got a philosophical end to the meeting, right?
Well, if you intend to do good by people, then it comes around and the cycle of life will come and pat you on the back.
I expected this to be a philosophical one, to be honest with you, Gary, with your great wisdom.
Now you're just taking the mickey.
Yeah, no, I am. Yeah, you're right. Right, I think we're towards the end there, Gary. I've really enjoyed that, as always. As I always enjoy our chats, and as we sort of said before, we're going to do a follow up for Gigzee. We'll be doing a bit of a deep dive into that product and get into the ins and outs of how that works, and we'll put Gary's contact details in the description of the video, and you'll hear more from Gary in the future. But it's been a pleasure to have you, mate, as always.
Absolutely fantastic. Thanks very much indeed.
Yeah, cheers, Gary. Thank you. Take care, mate.
Thanks.